Hey guys, welcome back to the channel Football Predictions and High Value Odds, and today I'm going to be giving out picks for the full weekend. So we go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before the international break starts, of course. And if you're a newcomer here, I suggest that you start betting on goals instead of outcomes of games, and also focus on single games instead of huge accumulators. If you have to go with that, I suggest that you go maximum 2 games, so doubles, try to get odds about 2. But before we get into the tips for the weekend, let's review the tips that we had in the previous video, which was the Europa League and Conference League. And honestly, it kicked my butt. I'm just recording this straight after the games ended, so let's do it. So for the first tip in the Europa League, we had LASK against Union. I was shocked by this game. LASK won 3-0. We had BTTS. And this is the first time Union has played bad all season, and it came at the wrong time. To lose one against Liverpool, so it puts them in a really bad position to qualify. And it was a shocker. They scored a goal in the end on the 90th minute, but of course it was cancelled due to VAR. So yeah, last 3-0, incredible. Then we had Servette against Sheriff Tiraspol. For Servette to score over 1.5 goals, that game went through. Also late, they scored a late penalty. The odds were 188. Then we had Haken against Molde, BTTS. Odds were 144. That was pretty easy. Both teams scored. The game ended 1-3, but the better pick, I guess, was to go with Molde for over 1.5. Then we had Freiburg against Bachka. I suggested Bachka over 0.5 goals. They absolutely got destroyed that game, 5-0, but the odds were high, so this was more of a risk. Then the Conference League, Legia Warsaw against Zrinski. Zrinski didn't show up at all. We had Zrinski just to score. I thought it was a decent bet for odds 162, but they lost that game 2-0. Then Aston Villa against Alkmaar. We had Aston Villa over 1.5. They did their job for odds 150. They won that game 2-1. Then we had Besiktas to score against Bodo over 1 goal. They lost that game at home 1-2, and they're out of the group. And then for the last tip, I guess this one was the one I was mostly disappointed with, was Klaksvik to score against Olympia. I thought they would have more urgency. They lost that game 2-0 and didn't show up at all. Okay guys, let's start off this long weekend journey. Let's start with the Friday's pick. Silkeborg against Randers, Danish League. Looking at the table, Silkeborg is currently 4th and they're 12 points ahead of Randers. And they're really dominant at home. In the last 6 games, they won 5 of them and they conceded 0 goals. That's kind of crazy considering it's the Danish league. And normally when I see this stat, I would go straight with BTTS or Rangers just to score. But Rangers have lost 3 games in a row. Also, something that I like about this game is that Silkeborg haven't won in 2 games in a row in the Danish league. So my first tip for you guys would be to go over 1.5 goals. The odds are currently about 180, which is really decent for the Danish league. But BTTS is also an option, considering with how long the streak has been going for Silkeborg, not conceding at home. Now for the second tip, we head to Serie A, a game between Genoa and Verona. Let's look at the table. Genoa is currently 14th with 11 points and Verona is in the relegation zone. Genoa are a pretty good home team in terms of scoring goals. They scored against Napoli. They managed to get a draw that game. Also, they destroyed Roma at home. So Genoa at home are pretty decent, but they are playing a really under 2.5 type of team, which is in Verona. I hate betting against Verona. We already did that this year with the Juventus, and Juventus managed to only score 1 goal against them. But I'm going to play it safe here. I believe that Genoa can score a goal, so I'm going to be riding with over 1 specifically, and the odds are currently at 154. Now for the third tip, let's head to Eredivisie, a game between Sittard and Heracles. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Heracles are currently 10th and they're 2 points ahead of Sittard, which are 14th. And both of those teams haven't won in a while. Heracles are currently on a 3-game losing streak away, and Sittard haven't scored 2 games in a row at home. And for a Dutch league, I don't think they're going to go 3 games without scoring at home, considering those 2 teams are pretty close. My third tip would be to go with BTTS here. I think the bookies are actually giving us pretty decent odds, 166 for the Dutch league. So yeah, this is my third tip, that Sittard and Heracles will both be scoring. Now for the last tip, I will not be taking this game. This is just a suggestion. Hear me out, guys. It's a game between Sassuolo and Salernitana in Serie A. Sassuolo are currently 15th in the league and Salernitana are dead last, but there's 2 stats that I like. First one is that Salernitana haven't scored in 4 consecutive games in Serie A, so can they go 5 games without scoring? And the second one is not a stat, but I'm going to talk about Sassuolo a bit. Sassuolo is basically the team in Serie A that could beat any team like Inter, Juventus or whatever, and they have done that this year. They can beat any top teams, but at the same time, they can lose also to any team. So I would watch out here for a Salernitana goal. And if you want to raise the odds a bit in this game, you can actually check out the BTTS option. It's not a bad one. The odds are currently at 165. So yeah, as I said, I'm not going to be taking this game, so it's a suggestion, so look into it. Now let's start off with the Saturday's games, and let's start with the team that we have been winning the most money on this channel, which is Real Sociedad. They're playing a really terrible Almeria side, which is dead last in the league. But Sociedad themselves, they fell off a bit. That's due to their draw against Vallecano, which we also had that game. We won that game. We had over 1 on Sociedad. And the loss against Barcelona, which came right in the end. Barcelona managed to win that game 0-1. And honestly, guys, I don't think that Sociedad is going to go 3 games without winning in La Liga. Of course, this game can end 0-1, and that's the problem with over 1 bet. But I'm going to be riding with my boys. I'm taking Sociedad over 1 here. Sorry, over 1.5. Bookies, as always, are giving us decent odds. And I believe they can score against Almeria 2 goals. Because look at this streak. Almeria has conceded in 6 consecutive games at home 2 or more goals. Let it be 7. So my first tip would be Sociedad over 1.5 goals. Now for the second tip, let's head to the Bundesliga. A game between Darmstadt and Mainz. 2 teams that are battling to stay in the Bundesliga next year. Mainz is in the relegation zone and Darmstadt is only 1 point away from it. Darmstadt is currently riding a 3-game losing streak and Mainz is actually on the come up. They have 4 points in the last 2 games and that's thanks to their huge victory, which nobody predicted, against Leipzig 2-0. And looking at the stats here, Darmstadt has the worst defense in the Bundesliga by far. And Mainz is the second worst. So my second tip would be to go BTTS here. Of course, it's the Bundesliga. However, there's a problem usually when you go with the 2 teams that are battling for the relegation. Sometimes there's low scoring games, especially in the Serie A. But as I said, this is the Bundesliga. I'm expecting few goals here from both teams. So BTTS for odds 158. For the third tip, we stay in the Bundesliga, a game between Augsburg and Hoffenheim. Augsburg is riding a positive streak, 7 points in the last 3 games, but they concede a lot, 22 goals conceded in 10 games. And Hoffenheim, I really can't predict this team, honestly. They're currently 6th, even though they have 4 losses in the last 6 games. However, they took 1 W against Stuttgart away. They won that game 2-3, and they gave Stuttgart the first loss of the season at home. And listen, the safe option would be here to go with BTTS, but the odds are too low. And Hoffenheim overall is still a good team. So my third tip would be to go with Hoffenheim over 1.5, considering that Augsburg's defense is not that great and they concede a lot of goals. Now for the fourth tip, we head to the Portuguese league for the first time this season, a game between Vitória and Porto. And to be honest with you guys, the only reason I like this game is because Porto had a huge loss against Estoril at home. And they cannot keep losing points in the Portuguese league because Sporting are taking off. They have 9 wins and 1 draw in 10 games, which is insane. So they'll have to start winning games. And Vitória is not a bad team. Vitória actually have 4 wins in 5 games at home. But I gotta go with the favorite here. I'm taking Porto over 1.5. Bookies are giving us odds 180. Now for the last pick on Saturday, we got a game between Monza and Torino in the Serie A. Monza is currently 9th at the table. They're a very solid home team. They're actually one of the 2 teams that still haven't lost a game at home, the other being Juventus. So they have 2 wins and 3 draws, while Torino has had a bad start to the season, but they won 2 games in a row. I doubt it's going to be 3 because Monza is a really solid team, as I said, at home. Monza over 1 here is my tip, over 1 goal, and the odds are currently at 170. Now let's start off with the Sunday's games, and let's start off with a banger. Chelsea against Man City, probably the game of the weekend. And as always, Man City is first in the table thanks to all the teams dropping points at the top last weekend. And Chelsea had that huge victory on Monday against the Spurs. What a crazy game that was. Jackson hat-trick, a lot of goals disallowed, red cards and all that stuff. And Chelsea have been much better. 5 wins in the last 7 games, but the 2 games that they didn't win came at home. They conceded 2 goals. They lost against Brentford and also 2-2 against Arsenal. Usually I don't like taking the huge favorites, the big teams, but Man City is too good. I mean, they have 5 wins in a row after that defeat against Arsenal and they're back on track. So I'm going to be taking their momentum. My tip would be Man City over 1.5 goals. Bookies are giving us odds 180 against Chelsea. Let me know what you guys think about this game. Now, for the second tip, we stay in the Premier League, a game between West Ham and Nottingham. West Ham just beat Olympiacos 1-0, but in the Premier League, they're doing terrible. I mean, they are coming off 4 straight games without a win, 3 straight consecutive losses, and they're only 1 point away from Nottingham, so they're underachieving a lot this year. And Nottingham, they had the huge victory against Aston Villa 2-0. I don't think they're going to repeat the same performance against West Ham. I don't think West Ham is going to go 5 games in a row without winning a game in the Premier League. And this is a good opportunity for them to win at home against Nottingham. So my tip here would be to go with West Ham over 1.5. And the odds are decent, 183 from the bookies. Now for the third tip, we head to the Danish League, a game between Odense and our favorite HVI team, the team that we have been winning a lot of money on. Now Odense is coming off some pretty decent results. They haven't been winning too many games, but they played against good teams. So they got a draw against Silkeborg, and they also won away against Nordjylland. So I believe they can score over 1.5 against the HVI team. So my third tip would be Odense over 1.5, and the Danish League has been kind to us in terms of goals. So why not? Let's ride with it. Now for the fourth pick, we remain in the Danish League, a game between Midtjylland and Nordjylland. And Midtjylland is on our MVP list, most valuable picks. They have been winning way too many over 1.5 games. And here I'm also looking into these stats because Midtjylland has been conceding also when they were winning those games. Every single game that they played at home in the last 5 have been BTTS. And Nordjylland is not a bad team away. Let's go with BTTS here. That's my tip. The bookies are currently giving us odds 160. So that's going to be my fourth tip. So for the last tip, this is more of a suggestion because I'm going to be taking this game. It's Lazio against Roma. I'm avoiding Lazio right now because they have been kicking my butt already 2 times in a row. I took Fiorentina to score against them. I took Feyenoord to score against them, and they didn't manage. So this is a team for me that's on the blacklist. But for you guys, I think this is a good bet. First thing, Roma is coming off a horrible loss against Slavia Praga. They got dominated that game. And second of all, Lazio is riding that 4-game winning streak at home. It's going to break sometime. And maybe this is the perfect game for it to happen. So Roma over 1 goal. This is my final tip for Sunday. Alright guys, this is it for me. I gave you out. I can't even count how many tips, guys. So choose wisely. Please don't take all of those games and expect all of those games to go through. I just do my research and to provide you that extra information that you might need on your betting journey. And yeah, that's what I'm really trying to achieve with this channel. If you support it, hit the thumbs up, really appreciate it. And please comment down below the picks that you're going to be making, the bets that you're going to be doing, because sometimes I take those bets. So yeah, guys, I might take a little break because it's the international break, but let's see if the bookies are giving us good odds. I'll be here providing you with more videos. And yeah, this is it. I need to go sleep. It's way too late. So bet responsibly, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.